Welcome to the cab of the Rivian R2. I'm here with my friend Kevin, and we booked a demo. Now, I've already had a demo, and we've had a lot of time inside of these things, but today, because we both were able to book a demo, we've got a little bit more time, and I want to capture a few things we haven't been able to capture so far. Efficiency is the biggest one. So they had a couple that we could choose from. One of them being the 20-inch with the BF Goodrich tires, and then the other one being the 21-inch with the all seasons that we have on this one, and that should be the most efficient. So when you're thinking about R2, likely you're also considering the Tesla Model Y, or you're a Tesla Model Y owner considering, should I switch to the Rivian R2? And I think one of the big pieces of that is efficiency. There's also cost, there's also space, and there's also comfort. I think tech is also that fifth big piece of that. So we're gonna spend time today to try to take a really good look at all of those pieces of this bigger puzzle. So right now we're on our way to the highway. We're gonna start with some of the efficiency testing. We're gonna do 70 miles per hour. We don't really have a whole lot of time at the end of the day, but I think we have enough to get a good feel for an estimate basically of what kind of efficiency you should expect. It's a perfect day in Florida for efficiency testing. It's like 90 degrees and there's no wind. It's sunny out. It's just a really good day for range testing. In the past, these are the types of conditions I've had really good luck. So I don't expect much different from here. So at 70 miles per hour, it'll be interesting to see what the range is. This thing, as it sits right now, is rated at 330 miles of range. It is the standard 21-inch wheels, and the future models, I think the dual motor non-performance is also 330, and then the single motor, which is coming next year, that one is possibly, that one's rated at 345. So that one should have a little bit more efficiency, which makes sense. But the thing about the Rivian R2, it has a really fun adventure-esque look to it. It's boxier, it's taller, it's more kind of aggressive looking for off-roading, but that comes at a cost, and that's efficiency. What Rivian has done in the past and here in the R2 is they've compensated for that with a bigger battery. Now, of course, it does drive costs, which brings us to our first piece here, and that is price. We are sitting in a launch edition, which means this is $59,000. It's $58,990, right?
It is $58,990.
Yeah. So this is $59,000. It is a performance dual motor, and it comes with autonomy plus. You do have to pay extra for colors, and you do have to pay extra if you want a tow hitch. And oh, I'm sorry, no, it comes with the tow hitch, right?
Yeah, the launch edition is very much a deal. I think it actually is $57,990.
57. So it's $58,000
with some options for colors and wheels.
Yeah. So colors up to $2,000, and you have wheels another $1,000, which is a really good deal if you want the BF Goodrich. We'll get into that later. That does decrease your range though by going with those, and then it does come with a tow hitch, but if you want the spare tire in the back, which will take up a lot of your sub trunk space, that's an extra as well. So really, you're very easily going to hit $60,000 in this car. It's a $58,000 car, and if we look over at the Tesla Model Y, we are talking basically launch series Model Y Juniper when it came out, which is the car that I have. It was $59,990, so $2,000 more expensive, but it came with every option, including colors, interior and exterior, but very similar setup. It also came with the acceleration boost, which gives you 0 to 60 in 4.1, where this thing, the performance, has 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds. So slightly it's definitely faster than the premium all-wheel drive, but it is slower than the performance Model Y, which comes in at 3.3 seconds. The performance Model Y is $57,490, so a $500 difference between the car we're sitting in right now and the performance Model Y. Now, keep in mind, this does come with extra goodies that increase the price of the car anyway. So you do get a bit with the launch series. Now, when the launch series is over, I don't think we have official pricing on the performance yet of what it should be, but the dual motor non-performance should come in at $54,000. And that is in comparison to Tesla's premium all-wheel drive, which if I'm not mistaken, is $50,000, $49,990. So once the launch series of the R2 is done, you'll also have the ability to order later this year the dual motor, which will be a really good package. It'll be basically this with less performance. So the setup for the motors will be different. They'll have the same battery, it'll have the same interior, and then you'll have other options for colors. I believe there's 2 colors you won't be able to get, but it is expected to come later this year at $54,000. So $4,000 more than the premium all-wheel drive Model Y. So performance Model Y versus this performance is a really good comparison because price is the same. Later this year, you're going to be looking at a bit of a premium to go to the R2 versus the Model Y. Also importantly, right now Tesla offers rear-wheel drive, and they offer an even lower trim package with the standard all-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive Model Y, which helps to bring affordability way down, which is a big piece. And that's something that Rivian continues to work on, and they're going to have to figure that out as time goes on, how to bring these costs down and more affordable options. So that's enough of the price discussion. We're now doing, I think, 72 miles an hour because that's an actual 70. Is that why?
Generally, we got to go about 2 over.
Okay.
So to be safe, we're gonna err on that side of caution.
Okay.
I've seen other Rivians road tested or range tested around 72.
So we're doing 72, and we're gonna go probably 20 minutes this direction.
Yeah.
So maybe 10 more minutes or so, we'll turn around. So we'll get a good feel both directions, north and then south, or I guess east and then west here on 408, right?
Yeah.
And we'll get some numbers here. On the highway, this is exactly the same as what I experienced in the one that I rode in Normal, Illinois. And in that one, on the highway, it's very quiet except for one noise, and it is this air noise back here. I think it's the spoiler all the way in the back, but it almost sounds like it's right here on this door up by the window. And that is the only exterior really noise that you hear. It's super quiet in here. Otherwise, you don't hear the tires at all. It's super smooth, and that is thanks to the brilliance of the adaptive suspension on this thing. It is very good. It is very much on par with Tesla's adaptive suspension. Butter smooth, absorbs bumps, and does a really good job of adjusting to the irregularities in the road. When it comes to performance, which we'll get to later, plenty of acceleration, but there is something I want to talk about there once we're done with the range test side of things. Kevin, what are your thoughts so far?
Well, on the car overall, to your points about the interior noise, I could pull up some decibels here. I would say it's quieter than my R1, and generally it feels better built. I think, which just is Rivian learning. They've simplified this car. I have a Gen 1 R1S from 2023. There's definitely a lot less noise. My car's a bit older, but I think if I think back to the start too, like the door panels just seem better built or more solid in this car. So it is very pleasant. The nimbleness is nice. Same you would get with the Model Y, but they're kind of better around town vehicles, not as big and bulky. It is definitely as smooth. I would say more planted than again an R1 to compare it to that. I would say.
But you have a Model Y. You have a 2021, right?
Correct. Yeah.
That one's been through the ringer too. But think of it in comparison to your, I guess, previous generation Model Y, which isn't the Model Y today, to be fair. But
that is a pretty easy comparison, and probably the best one. It is, the Model Y is the car that we would replace with the R2, so that is absolutely how my wife and I are thinking about it. Same size, great to get the kids around, smaller trips. We're not gonna, for us with our family, we wouldn't take it across the country, but it's a great vehicle where we can still put 3 kids in and the dog, but we don't need our whole lives with us. And it is more efficient, so you feel good about, you know, driving around town in something a bit more efficient. And comparing it to the Model Y, again, we have a 2021, it's on the 20-inch wheels. I've been driving it the last week since we got home from a trip. This is much smoother.
For sure.
And I know Tesla put a lot of work into fixing that suspension with Juniper there, but ours is much stiffer than this, much sportier, which is good in a lot of ways. This feels softer, which plays into its off-roading.
Yeah.
And you can tell that it's trying to be that. This is not, trying to be a race car. And anyone that thinks about tracking something like this, it's just a tiny percentage of people. But it still handles great and it's smooth. It's not a car. It feels like a small SUV, and that's what it is.
Yeah, I think those are really solid points. And even as a refresh Model Y owner, a premium all-wheel drive, this is smoother. There's no question it is smoother than the premium Model Y. I'm trying to make sure I say this in a way that's definitive here. It's the premium Model Y is so much better than the previous one. It is very smooth. The adaptive suspension is fantastic. This is even smoother, which should not be a surprise for a lot of the reasons that you just mentioned, being that this thing was built more towards off-roading capability. So the suspension has more room for play in this. So it shouldn't be a surprise that it's actually a bit smoother. I think it's even quieter than the Model Y also, minus whatever this one wind noise is. And I was thinking it was maybe the one that I drove, but now that it's 2 for 2, so there's something. Other than that, absolutely quiet in here. And I guess Kevin's pulling up his decibel reading right now, so I'm going to stop talking for a second. 62 decibels at 72 miles an hour. That is really, really good. That's barely more noise than you have in like your living room at home.
Yeah, we're not hearing any truck pass us or car or their tires or nothing right now. It's quite quiet.
Yeah, and actually after this ride, let's clip to that now. You're watching this. In the Cybertruck at 70 miles an hour, it is. All right, so there's your comparison. I don't know what it is yet, but you do, which is a good comparison because the Cybertruck is, I think, the quietest vehicle that Tesla makes in my experience. Now, there is obviously a new contender to compete with this at Tesla, and that is finally the Model Y L has officially launched here in North America, in the United States, which is fantastic. That is actually a 6-passenger variant of the Model Y, which means this can't really compete with that for capacity of passengers, but also in storage capacity. So it actually has more interior cargo space than this does, whereas this has more cargo space than the traditional Model Y, just a little bit more. And it's actually not in the places that you think it is. It's actually not as much in the trunk as you would suspect it might be. A lot of it comes from the front, and the sub trunk is substantially larger than you would expect in this car. That's going to be an interesting way that this is going to play out, at least in the short term, because the Model Y L, the launch edition, is $60,000. Once it's no longer a launch series, I suspect it's going to be $55,000 to $56,000, which is going to be right on par with this. Now, that is not a performance version. It will have comparable specs otherwise, though. And so far, I think we've driven 11 miles, and we're sitting just over 3 miles per kilowatt hour. We've consumed 4 kilowatt hours in 12 miles, which is really good.
And that it's not bad. It ends up being 333 watt hours per mile. Simple math, a little bit less than that, maybe 325 right now. And we'll see where it shakes out as we drive a little bit more. The car was heat soaked, but we've cooled it off, so the AC is not blasting. It's quite low at this point with it at 72 degrees. And what that would extrapolate to, without grabbing my phone, about 270-ish miles.
So 276 miles of range at where it's sitting right now anyways. So we'll see how that averages out. We're gonna do a U-turn here soon and head back the other direction because it's about that time that we need to do that. So we'll get the full I guess it'll end up being probably 25 or 30 miles, which is great. So the bright points are pretty obvious in my mind in the R2. It's very comfortable, although these seats are not as plush as, well, you know, with the refresh model. Now, these aren't quite as plush as even the refresh Model Y. The old Model Y, they're the plushest seats of any of them, but they're a little bit more firm. Now, the benefits are, if I open this up and I turn on my cooled seat, you get cooled seats out of that, but I think, oh, there it goes. Now I can feel it. This is,
they rip.
yeah, that's much better. So I have yet to have cooled seats that worked in these cars, and it's been frustrating. So here we go. Finally, cooled seats that are working, and it actually does feel like a cooled seat.
It's incredible. I don't know if they're piping in any AC, but you feel it more than I've felt. You can hear the fan a little bit with it on 3 or full blast. If you go to 2, it's certainly more moderate.
Yeah, you can hear that fan for sure. That's interesting. Now we're on 2 and you can't hear it. Or I'm on 2 and I can't hear it.
Yeah, and I would say like 1 is the typical cooled seat feeling on other seats that I'm in. 3 is like you absolutely feel like the air is blowing. Yeah,
this is actually working. Unlike Tesla's ventilated seats. So again, I'm not sure if these are ventilated or actually actively cooled. They're one of the two, but Teslas are ventilated. They're not actively cooled. So it's using the temperature of the air in the car to blow air through there. But in my Cybertruck, you can't even feel them. In the Model Y, you can kind of feel them. They're okay. Really, the only time it works out as a benefit, in my experience, is when you're cooling the car off before you get in it after it's been sitting in the sun. Other than that, like just turning it on, I almost never feel them, and it's such a bummer. But these, really, really good. Okay, so I've moved the camera. I don't know why I did that. I asked Kevin to drive because I'm trying to set up all these cameras, and we don't have a lot of time, so we've got a view here now where you can see from behind us. Sorry for the delay on that. As Kevin was saying, if you watch on the screen over here, he's got the efficiency data on the far left. Now that's from when we got in the parking lot and we're ripping the AC. So it's not going to match what we have here, which is what we reset for highway. And it's continuing to climb. We're at 317 1 hour per mile. And it's got a little bit of data. It's cut off, but that was interesting.
Yeah, that's early software glitch, I'd say. Let's see if it does it on B, just while we're here.
And this is universal hands-free. So this is what you can get with the R2. Basically, what it does is it's like autopilot, or enhanced autopilot, I think is the better way of thinking about it. It's not changing lanes on its own. You have to ask it to do that by flipping the turn signal. But it does everything else. It's driving. It's adjusting to traffic around it, which is great. And the most important thing is it is seeing everything around us that we can and cannot see, which is why these systems, including Rivian's, are so important for the future of our highways. They're so much more safe than a human driver by far, regardless of what you feel about, quote, a robot driving you around. Like, this is way safer for everybody involved. So their version obviously is not full self-driving, and this is where we get into the tech side of things. I want to preface this by saying I had the opportunity with Kevin actually to experience their
point-to-point
system. It was an early version of it, but their first public look at their point-to-point system, and that, I was shocked at how good it was. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't FSD, let's be clear. But it was like version 12, like right when it started to get like, okay, this could work. So there were plenty of little things here and there, but in just 2 years, they rolled out from nothing to that. And I think that's an important distinction, because we're talking about how quick can Rivian, quote, catch up, so to speak, to Tesla. And I think looking at what we've done so far, I think it's pretty obvious that this isn't going to be some long putt that can't be made. This is going to get to that point. I think we're actually probably pretty close to that, but unfortunately, these systems aren't available to the public yet to see where we're at today, to know how close we are really to that. But the power of AI they have really been able to accelerate that. So I think FSD is clearly the industry standard. They are leaps and bounds ahead of everybody. However, I think Rivian has a path to get there. It's just a matter of what's their 2 weeks look like. So after that drive, we're looking at about 3.3 miles per kilowatt hour. So if we do some quick math here, so an effective range of about 293. So that's going to be less than what you're going to get on the Model Y. So I've done a number of tests on the Model Y at 70 miles an hour, and the EPA number was solid. So in my case, right at the EPA numbers, but I have the upgraded 20-inch wheels, which reduce that range. So actually, my Model Y in its 70 mile an hour test did maybe 10 miles more than this, maybe 15 miles more than this, but at a rating of 303 with those wheels. I think at 70 miles per hour, almost 300 miles is pretty decent. It's okay. I wouldn't say it's like amazing today. Now, 5 years ago, I'd say that's solid, but things have changed so much in that. So I think it's okay. Probably minimum expectation. So any less than that would be unacceptable. 270 miles, I don't think is acceptable at 70 miles an hour. That's, 70 miles under the rated number. Here we're talking 40. So a little over 10% of a reduction versus its rated range. So I think that's a little bit low, if we're being honest. Now,
and you can kind of see some of those differences with the Y and the R2 when it comes to the aero profile of both vehicles. When you look in the Monroney or the EPA sheets, you see the R2 take a bigger hit on the highway rated portion, whereas this car is tremendously efficient, just like the Model Y around town.
yeah.
I don't know if this is any more efficient, but its city efficiency is really excellent, whereas the highway, with its rectangular shape, you do take a bit of a hit, which is obvious. They try to minimize it with the spoiler and some other creative things, but at the end of the day, it's just a little less aerodynamic.
When we're talking about the height of this vehicle, it is definitely going to show up on the highway. On the highway more than it will in the city. And I would agree, based on how that did, it's not that far off from what I did in mine, but mine was basically EPA.
So if we look at the efficiency graph now, as we're off the highway, we're on a 30 mile an hour road, headed back to Rivian's shop here in Orlando. The efficiency graph, it's climbing. We're steadily in the green, which is kind of above Rivian's benchmark of 3 miles per kilowatt hour or 333 watt hours per mile. Over on the graph, we're consistently above that, which means above 3, which means you're getting over 275, 280 miles if you're at the 3 or above. We're significantly higher. So that 3.48, we're getting closer to the 330 mile EPA range, and it is climbing. I mean, we're consistently touching 4 miles per kilowatt hour as we just kind of cruise around a city for 250 watt hours per mile. So again, you're seeing the city efficiency, kind of be there at least. Doesn't help you on a road trip, but day to day when you're running around, super efficient vehicle.
Now I want to talk about the performance piece of this, and this is where I've always had, I couldn't figure out how to explain what I was thinking until actually this morning I was thinking about it. So the dual motor performance is what the Launch Series is, and it gives you more acceleration. It's got the ability to be more tuned for that performance style, but it is still a tall SUV, and it still does have suspension travel. So the body roll, I feel like I've heard people downplay it a bit. I think that when you're taking turns in this, the body roll is significant. Like, it's a lot. It's a lot. But that's because of the platform that we're in. It is an SUV, and it is absolutely taller than the Model Y off the ground. The ground clearance is more as well. I think, in my opinion, I think the performance version of the R2 is not the spec to go with. And it is because of that reason. If you want a performance SUV, it is, in my opinion, a Model Y performance 100%. And even with the Juniper, they actually laxed a bit on the suspension. So it's not even as rack driven decisions in that suspension, but it is way more planted in this, as you would expect. I mean, you don't have to be a physics major to understand why this is happening. So I want to make that clear. Although some people are saying, oh, no, it's not, it's barely there. No, there's a lot of body roll in here, as should be expected. But because of that, the benefits of performance aren't there. So the acceleration is really the only thing that's kind of useful, I guess. But the rest of it, why? You're not going to take this on a track. I mean, you could, but it wouldn't do anything impressive, so to speak, if that makes sense.
And you're absolutely going to see more people take this on a trail and off-road than a track ever. And I think Rivian understands that. And I've already seen some aftermarket companies come out with like just under 2-inch lift kits. So you're already seeing the accessory companies kind of line up to make what they think the customers are going to want. And it's nothing performance oriented. It's off-road oriented, it's camping, it's lifts, it's all those sorts of things.
Exactly. And that is why I think performance spec makes zero sense unless you just want the R2 now and you don't want to wait, which trust me, I'm that guy too. I understand that. That's the only reason I would get a performance in the R2. Otherwise, I would save the money and get the dual motor and get the same type of acceleration you're going to get in like the Model Y. It's still going to be faster than 90% of the cars on the road. From a stoplight, you're going to beat everybody. So you still have that ability in the dual motor. You just don't have the quote insane type of acceleration for something like this that you would get in the performance. Now, for some people, it's all or nothing, and I totally get that. Just know, if you really want performance in an SUV, the Model Y is a better pick. Everything else, like off-roading, I'm sorry, I gotta say, Tesla released a video recently with the launch of the Model Y L, and it was doing some like dirt path thing, like in a very nature area on a mountainside, right? And I'm like, that's not what a Model Y does. Like, it was obviously because of the R2, they want to show, hey, we can do that too. No, you can't. So this is absolutely going to be way better off-road than a Model Y because it's built for that. He's just looking at some of the efficiency data. We're looking more like 4 miles per kilowatt hour since we got off the highway. That's not a lot of driving. I think, what are we talking? 3 miles. It doesn't mean anything, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think Rivian's current software, that report will not exceed 4.
Really?
So it's just hammered to that.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Over here on my graph, the second dash line is technically 4.5 miles per kilowatt hour. They also don't report like higher than 10 on this graph if you're like going downhill for an extended period. So they have some parameters that they live within. But we're seeing it climb quite a bit. We're 10% higher just after doing a few miles off the highway.
And if it was for 4 miles per kilowatt hour, you'd be looking at 350 miles of range. So just to give you the full picture here of the range discussion. So that is not an official test. That is not scientific. And that is very short window. But just to give you a flavor for it of what you probably should expect from the range discussion. So I assume we're getting ready to launch it.
Yeah, because we saw a video released this week of Rivian getting ready for their next software update that's rolling out. Generally, they do it monthly, but they've added launch control to R2 performance.
Perfect.
And it actually had some impressive specs. And what the specs showed is a Model Y performance will beat this car to 60, right? Justin, you mentioned the 3.3 versus 3.6. Well, by 100 miles an hour, this car is beating a Model Y, and in the quarter mile, which this runs an 11.3, I think at 130 miles an hour.
If you remember the performance, actually you were with me, if you remember, that thing it felt very held back right, throughout the acceleration curve.
Yeah, it's pretty subdued off the line, 40, 50.
I mean, it is not throttling back. So yeah, that's a much more linear after initial takeoff, when it feels full traction on all wheels, and braking's pretty good. That was, if I don't know, do we have to turn around and just lay on the brakes at 60? I just want to see. We're in the back of an industrial park. There's nobody around. We're doing this safely. So I just want to be clear about that. We're not in a school zone like some people. So we're going to get to 60 and then just mash the brakes. All right. ABS is doing a fantastic job, as you can probably hear, hopefully. ABS was solid on that. It gave you exactly what you were looking for, but it's still a heavier car and it's sitting higher and the suspension is taller. So there is some, it's not lag. This won't stop on a dime the same way that something lower to the ground would naturally, but it's still very good. The ABS system was actually really impressive.
Yeah, held straight, felt good. You get a little bit of nosedive because of the ground clearance.
Now, the most important thing when you're talking about a Model Y owner or somebody considering a Model Y versus R2, you probably have a family. Most customers of both of these vehicles are going to be families, and this vehicle was built specifically for that. This is right square in the most popular automotive segment in the United States, and it brings the Rivian flavor to that segment. Is this a great family car? Well, one of the things I'm going to do, if they still have time for us, I have a tape measure in the truck that I'm going to grab, and I'm going to set the driver's seat to my height, measure the legroom in the back because I suspect it's bigger than the Model Y, and then when I get home, I'll measure that and show the difference. I think for families, definitely the way that the cargo space in the back is laid out is going to be way more useful, way more practical, easier to use than the Model Y. In the Model Y, as soon as you put a double wide stroller in there, everything else is it becomes a challenge of where to fit everything. And in here, the boxy style gives you more usability out of the available space that we have. In my opinion, comparing this to the Model Y, it is quieter, smoother, has more off-road capability, obviously. The cargo space that it does have is more practically set up, including the frunk, which is massive. However, it has a less capable ADAS system. It has, it's not nearly as sporty on driving, whether it's the performance or not. It's not quite as quick for acceleration. So the performance stuff isn't quite there. The technology isn't quite there, but outside of Tesla, this is the second best tech in all cars out there, period. I said it here, this is the second best that you can get today. And it's not all that far. It's getting better. A couple years ago when I drove an R1, it was pretty good. Kind of laggy, a couple things that are a little weird. The universal hands-free is pretty decent. It's nowhere near FSD. Yeah, I think that this is a solid choice. It's just about waiting for a more affordable variant to come out that I think starts to make more sense. Because I think for the money, you can get a lot better performance than you can in the performance dual motor that we're sitting in right now. The dual motor non-performance, you're talking a $4,000 premium before options. Is that worth it? Well, it depends on, do you use full self-driving, which according to the latest numbers is something like 18% of Tesla owners. If you're one of those, you will not like universal hands-free. It's not good enough. It doesn't do anything that FSD does, really. Otherwise, I think it's worth considering because the way it's set up is going to be more comfortable for families of basically all sizes within the 5-seat limitation. But older kids, taller parents, bigger, wider, all those things, you just have a little bit more interior space to sit in and a much more practical cargo space in the back. All right, so I'm sitting here in the back, got the front seat where I would have it, and then Let me just pull this out. So it's kind of hard to get it perfectly there, but we're talking 7 inches of leg room. You should be able to see on the camera, 7 inches is right there. So this is what it looks like. I mean, it's massive amount of space. It's tons of room back here. And on top of that, it feels taller here, but this angle right here, it's like, it's coming in like right at your head, which is, I didn't notice that before, but for me, it's high enough that it wouldn't bother me. But if you're taller, you're probably gonna start feeling close to this. If you're maybe 7-footer, right? Like you'd have to be pretty tall. But yeah, fantastic space back here. Now, real quick, before we get kicked out, let me open up the back here. I wanna take just a couple more measurements here. So to the back of the bottom of the seat, to this trim right here, 36.5 inches. And then between the wheel wells, 41.5. And then really the beauty of this, you have 31 inches there and you have 29.5 inches there. That's where the huge space is coming from. Also, because it's so square, you don't start getting less space the higher up you go from the wheel wells. In fact, you go from 41 inches to 46 inches. So you get actually another 5 inches of width, just a few inches off of the ground, plus these cavities where the windows are. It's humongous storage space. And then real quick, if you want to look how massive that is. So it's very much like the Model Y, but it has more. Like this part on the Model Y does exist, but it is, you know, this deep. It's not very deep, but it is useful. We're talking about 14.5 inches deep. Yeah, 14.5 inches deep. And at the very top anyways, 34.5 wide and 32 down here. Massive, massive. This is a space that people in gas cars don't understand how practical this is. The space is worth its weight in gold, as well as the frunk in this car specifically. A lot of people don't use the frunk in the Model Y, they say, and a lot of that is because it's not powered. I just added a power lift kit to the hood on our Model Y, which I've done to all of us. It completely makes it useful, and you'll use it all the time. Huge space up there, extremely useful, especially on road trips, because instead of putting that suitcase between the kids, you put it up there or you put it back here, and it's not in anybody's way. This, you wouldn't believe the amount of space or the amount of stuff you can fit in a space like this. It's just unbelievable. I'll show you actually a really quick clip from Christmas. I promise you, this is everything that came out of our car when I got home. Unbelievable. And then of course, the most important part in my opinion, this right here, in my opinion, my humble opinion, this is what makes any other EV even viable. Without this NACS connector right here, what is the point of any other EV? There's no solid, super reliable, across the country CCS network. It just doesn't exist. I don't care. I will die on that hill. Tesla completely changed all of that with a simple design that just works, and it works everywhere. By having this, you now have access to all of Tesla's network. That makes this car not just viable, but on top of the list. So is the R2 worth stepping away from the Model Y? Is it time to move on from Tesla and go to the Rivian R2? I think it's a fantastic option, but I don't think the time is right just yet, and it is due to the launch series configuration that you have to get, because it comes with Esker Silver, which in my opinion is the worst of the colors they offer. So you got to pay money for a paint. You don't have to, but paint option, you got to pay extra for that. I mean, it's a lot of money for what I think is equipment you don't need and you won't use. So the performance side of this car is great, but this isn't a performance car. So it's hard for me to wrap my head around that. I think the Model Y has done a fantastic job of of marketing itself as a performance-driven SUV. Certainly the Model X Plaid was insanely fast. This is not that. This is something different. This is an adventure family vehicle, and I think it hits most the marks on the spot. We still are nowhere near what Tesla FSD is, so if that's super important to you, this isn't going to be an option for you right now. It will hopefully in the future, but I think once the launch series is over and you don't have to get performance, I think that the dual motor might be worth looking at. Now, you are going to have to add 2,500, I think it is, for Autonomy Plus, which isn't active yet, and it's excluding some hardware that's coming later, specifically the LiDAR. Now, the LiDAR, people are saying they're waiting for the LiDAR, but the LiDAR isn't actually being used for active driving on Autonomy Plus. It's actually just helping to continuously map the roads for the network, really. So that hardware isn't going to actually add functionality to the R2 when it comes, so keep that in mind. So I would personally wait, save the money for the dual motor, but understand you're going to spend more money to get Autonomy Plus added, obviously colors and things like that. The wheels are different. They are not these 21s. They're different 20-inch wheels that are fine. These are still my favorite, but I would only get them if you're going to ever do some trailing. It doesn't even have to be extreme trailing. That's the only way that you should consider doing this, because you lose range getting them. Those tires are more expensive, but they are awesome tires. So really fantastic deal for $1,000 in my opinion, to go with the BF Goodrich's that you see back here on the 20-inch wheels versus the 21s right here. So let me know, are you going to make the switch? Do you have an order in, or are you Team Tesla all the way? Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I can't wait to catch you on the next one.